Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're gonna start now, finally. Thank you so much for coming tonight, this evening. Thank you for not getting scared of the snow. We were all probably bemused by the fact that it was snowing today in quite a few locations in London. And thanks God you came, regardless of that. We're not sure what's going to happen tonight, but hopefully you're not going to have a boat to get back home tonight. you never know, right? So thanks for coming to Outreach Digital event. Outreach Digital is a digital community that was founded actually just over a year ago. And what we do, we organize events and workshops and any kinds of get-togethers where we can share digital knowledge. And we cover any kind of subject, from UX, PPC, to app development, to paid advertising, social media, etc. We cover all of those areas. And the reason why we do that is because we believe that there's no free space in London to share the digital knowledge. And this is what we are passionate about. We are passionate about sharing digital knowledge for free and connecting people so we can learn from one another. You don't have to go online, you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds for like a piece of paper that says, yes, you pass some course, right? So today is a special day, by the way, because this is a 100th event that we organized in the last year. So we've been very busy, we've been very productive, we've been doing So thanks a lot, and I have to say a big thank you to our growing volunteer team. Please, everybody raise your hands. We have quite a few today, and every single time we have quite a few volunteers, and it's done for free. We don't have any sponsors, we don't have a budget, we don't spend any money, we just do it because we like it, right? So it's really great, and thanks again for volunteers for doing it.
And we are going to talk about Paid Social Day, and it's Tom Gavin, it's the advertising manager from Born Social. It's an agency, so let him begin.
Sorry. I'm really sorry. I know you've been waiting for like half an hour, but 2 more minutes. Before we start, we have a very nice tradition, I believe.
Oh, yes.
We would like you to stand up and introduce yourselves in a sentence, right? So could you all stand up and just say, you know, something very short about yourselves, you know, who you are, what you do, etc. And I can start myself. I'm Christina, and I work in digital e-commerce marketing.
I'm Anna. I am working in I'm working in digital marketing.
Hey, I'm Maggie. I also work in marketing and business development for a tech startup.
I'm Tom Gammon. I work as the advertising manager at Born Social.
I'm Simone. I'm a marketing manager. Just basically returning to work after having my son and just acquiring a lot of knowledge.
Excellent. Yes.
I'm Shuyen Bai. I had a marketing degree and I'm looking for a marketing job.
Excellent.
I'm Tanya. I'm a marketing and communications consultant working in financial services.
I'm Christian. I'm a co-founder and head of design at Vola. We're an app about recording lectures, and that's exactly what I'm doing today.
Hello, I'm Lucy. I'm returning to work, hopefully, and that's why I'm here.
Hello, I'm Ellie. I'm a YouTuber and makeup artist.
Nice.
Hello, I'm Apostolos and I own a creative agency in London.
I'm João and I'm launching a web concept platform for property listing.
My name is Victoria and I'm a brand manager and I work in events. My name is Alexandra. I'm working in consulting for international marketing.
My name is Horst. I'm chartered accountant. My business is saving tax for you guys who make the money and I save the tax.
Amazing.
My name is Davide and I'm a marketing and communication consultant.
I'm Elsa and I'm an analyst and I work in management consulting.
I'm Lavinia. I'm a visual designer for Accenture.
I'm Valerie. I work in marketing in the consumer goods industry.
I am Paula and I work in accounting roles.
I'm Bianca and I used to work with business intelligence and marketing.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Mayank. I'm a tech entrepreneur and I have no clue about social marketing or digital marketing.
Amazing. That's why we're here.
Hi, I'm Asa
Sam, I'm a mobile application tester.
I'm Alex, I work for a digital marketing consultancy.
I'm Jamie, I also work for the same digital marketing consultancy.
Great. I'm Jackie, I work for New Age Marketing. I'm Mia, I work for New Age Marketing.
Hello, hi, my name is Deepak. I'm very passionate about digital marketing and I run New Age Marketing.
I'm Tarek, I provide small business support services into small businesses in London.
Hi, I'm Brundusha and I'm a PR specialist.
Hi, I'm Vin. I'm an ex-mathematician, and the closest thing to what we do is probably automated social media growth hacking.
Yay!
Hi, I'm Leah. I work in recruitment doing marketing.
Hi, I'm Gemma and I work in beauty social media.
Yeah, it's confident.
I'm Jerry, I work as a technical consultant.
Ahmed, the business department manager for digital transformation.
I'm Vishal, working in email marketing.
I'm Amber and I work in marketing events for a software house.
Hi, I'm Kanya. I'm trying to get into the digital marketing industry.
Norman, I manage a recording studio and I source property for investors.
Me, working as marketing executive at a media.
I'm Anya and I work in social media marketing for Media.
Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm a marketing manager at newlookart.com.
Cool.
I'm his brother and I'm director of New Look Art.
My name is Ares, I'm a web designer.
My name is Alex, I'm going out for online lessons.
My name is Natalia and I'm a personality in digital marketing.
My name is Aurelio and I'm an app developer.
My name is Hilliard. I'm working, I'm doing some business in e-commerce.
Last one, send an email.
My name is Jen and I'm co-head partnerships and marketing for an SEO management platform.
I'm Sophie and I have an online agency.
Right. Any more? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you very much. So right, thank you so much. I hope that helped you to kind of, get a sense of who's in the audience, who's here today. Yeah. Are there any people who have been to our meetups before? Can you raise your hands? I'm just curious to see how many people are coming over and over. That's excellent. Thank you so much for coming back. We hope you're doing a good job because you're coming. To those who are looking for jobs, we have a very interesting and relevant event happening tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow we are holding an event about career advice in digital space. It's going to take place here in WeWork Soho, which is, by the way, a co-working space that hosts our events on a regular basis as well. So come along. It starts at 6:30. We're going to do a CV lab where you can bring your CV, get advice from professional recruiters who specialize in digital marketing, and we will have a bit of Q&A. A lot of recruiters are coming to give advice to you guys, so come along, bring your CV, network, meet people. There's going to be recruiters, there's going to be employers, etc. So it's a great opportunity to meet people and find out how to actually make a career in the digital space. So, and I think that's it. Please tweet, ask questions, send quotes, your thoughts, etc. Follow us on social media, and that's it. Believe it or not, that's it.
That's it, for sure.
Tom, please.
Hi. Just one quick, sorry, I'll let you relax in a sec. One quick question just before we start. Who here actually, personally, does any kind of social media themselves? As in like posting and... Okay, cool, fine. So I pitched this at quite like a practical level, which I may slightly twist on the fly, because I think there's like slightly more the kind of wider theoretical stuff might be a bit more interesting. Anyway, we'll crack on. So I'm Tom. I am the advertising manager at Born Social. And Born Social are these lovely guys. We are one of Europe's leading social media agencies, and we work with around 100 clients all across the gamut, from kind of fintech and finance to I don't know, drinks brands, restaurants, that kind of stuff. We largely work with what we like to term as challenger brands. So basically brands which aren't really in a market leading position, but they're absolutely brilliant, and we're kind of helping to get them up there. Also, I'm going to have to apologise. I thought I'd be able to look at my notes. I can't. I've got a stack of paper. Okay, so why social media marketing? Why social media advertising? Just before we start, I'm just going to make a slight clarification. So what I'm separating here is social media marketing and social media advertising, which I'm going to kind of make a little distinction between. Social media marketing is what I'm terming as kind of brands putting together stuff and putting it out, but there's no there's no money behind it. So it's if anyone in this room could set up a page on Facebook and post some stuff on it, that's what I'd call social media marketing. As soon as you start putting some money behind that content, that's what I would call social media advertising. I would also call it paid media, but social media advertising is paid media, just to clarify. So why social media advertising? I think there's a couple of reasons. If you want to break into social media these days, it's basically harder and harder and harder for brands to make an impact without any money behind them. So Facebook a few years ago, as you guys may know, changed their newsfeed to what's called an algorithmic feed. So rather than just showing content in the order in which it is posted, they decided to show content in the order that they thought the user would like to see it. That's great from a user perspective, but from a brand's perspective, it's much, much harder for you to reach your users, because suddenly Facebook's standing in the way, arbitrating whether your content should get to them. So as a way to kind of enable your content to get to your users and your fans, social media advertising allows you to kind of reach that audience. And in today's day and age, you might have heard the news about Twitter kind of shifting to an algorithmic feed. Instagram are looking to shift to an algorithmic feed. So it's becoming harder and harder and harder for brands to kind of make as big an impact as they used to be able to in social media without any paid advertising behind them. So that's kind of where the landscape's at the moment. Now, why social media advertising as opposed to, say, you might be like, well, if I'm going to invest money somewhere, why social media advertising? Why not looking at SEO stuff, or why not Google ads, or why not billboard advertising if you've got the budget, or things like that? I think, to be honest, I think there's a few reasons in my mind. Social media advertising is highly, highly, highly targetable. So the whole thing behind social media is people will set up profiles and they'll populate that with information about themselves. That information is an absolute goldmine for advertisers, because in these profiles people say their age, their gender, where they live, the sort of things they like, the sort of things they do. So there's that information combined with extra information that these kind of social media platforms will gather around people to kind of build a profile of who they are. And because the information about these people is so complete, it makes advertising so targetable. Because if I want to target people within a mile's radius of WeWork Soho, who are between 25 and 32, and they have an interest in, I don't know, marketing, I can do that. And that's really, really powerful. That's really powerful. So that's number one, really highly targeted. Another one, it's really cost effective. In terms of kind of, I'm going to use an industry standard metric of cost per 1,000 people reached, or CPM. It's kind of like I don't like it in terms of social media advertising, which I'll get onto later. But in terms of industry standard, it's kind of a way that a lot of different advertising types are measured. So this is a graph showing the CPM of different types of advertising. A lot of these are traditional media. I recognise that some of the digital media will be a similar thing. But in terms of traditional media, Social media on the far right is about £2.50, well $2.50 CPM, so cost per 1,000 people reach, compared to something like direct mail or broadcast TV, which is much, much more expensive. And in addition, things like these traditional media channels, you won't be able to get the same level of targeting as you can on social media. So with things like a billboard, you're largely putting in an area where you think people are going to like your stuff will be, maybe. Whereas with social media, you can be like, well actually I want to target people who, I don't know, follow Jane Norman online. That's a very specific audience, and I can go straight to them and be like, hi guys, here's my new clothing brand for women. So it's really cost effective, really high targetable. There's a couple of, the third main thing I think is highly, highly measurable. This is similar to a lot of other digital marketing types, but for people who don't have a digital marketing background. The great thing about social media advertising and a lot of digital advertising is that you can really accurately measure your results. So just to use kind of the billboard idea, if you put up a billboard, it's very hard to measure what the outcome of putting out that billboard is. A, it's very hard to measure whether people have actually looked at it. You can take a good guess, but it's quite hard to measure. And then it's also very hard to measure, actually, once those people looked at your billboard, what did they do? Did they like your brand anymore? Did they engage in your brand in any other way? Did they go on to purchase, I don't know, a pair of shoes at Jane Norman? That stuff's really hard to measure, and it's largely kind of done through a bit of kind of mathematical trickery of kind of using averages and using footfalls and things like that. The great thing about social media is that you can, through the right sort of setup, I can track whether someone has looked at my advert and then gone on to my website and bought a pot plant 3 days later on a completely different device. So it's a really amazing way of making sure you're spending your money in the right way and you're not wasting money. You're not just throwing money out there and going, well, I hope something sticks. You can put money really precisely in places and go, I know that's really working because I can see the measurable returns. There's a few other extra points, like broadly to social media marketing, it can open up two-way conversations and things like that, and you can help to generate a long-term following. Just to the question at the back, I'm going to try and go through some of this stuff and then have questions at the end if that's right. So if you have any questions, just save them up and I'll look to have a long-range question and answer session at the end if you have any questions. Or you can tweet them at the end of the wall. So that's kind of my argument is, okay, why social media advertising as opposed to other types of advertising? I'd say this, just to recap, there's four main arguments. One, if you're doing social media marketing at all, it's getting to the point where it's actually a pay-to-play field, and you need to invest money in the channels in order to make an impact. Two, it's really highly targetable. You can get to exactly who you want to reach, and you can measure whether that advertising can have an impact. And fourthly, it's just quite cost-effective, which is good for everyone. Okay, so why social media advertising? Now this stuff, so I'm going to run through some of the platforms as like a broad overview of why you might choose to advertise on one platform as opposed to another. I recognise this might be slightly more practical than some of you guys are interested in, but it might be quite interesting if you're looking to invest in the future, or if you want a better understanding for your clients, or for your advertising team, or whatever. So when I talk about social media advertising, I talk about social media, so things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, maybe Reddit, an example. I don't mean YouTube, and I guess I also include things like Snapchat and Periscope and things like that in there. But I get a lot of questions about YouTube advertising. I don't know anything about YouTube advertising, I'm sorry. But by platforms, I mean like what most people consider as like a traditional social media platform. Facebook. So Facebook is a platform from a marketing and advertising perspective, have basically hands down won the game on social media advertising. Because I think for two reasons. One, because initially they changed the feed, so they changed their algorithmic feed, which means brands had to invest in order to make it a useful channel. And they coupled that with actually, if we're going to make you invest, let's build some really, really good tools to make that process as easy for you as possible. So, on and off, from my perspective, it's brilliant to use. So if you're looking to put your toe into social media advertising, I would start on Facebook, and I would almost always default to Facebook. My basic rule of thumb is if you don't have a specific reason to not use Facebook, use Facebook. Because I sound like I'm being paid by Facebook, I'm not. But generally, it's by far and away the best, for me, I think, unless there's some specific cases, but we'll go into those. So one, it's generally the most cost effective. For most types of advertising, you generally will get a cheaper cost on Facebook for whatever action you're trying to achieve. So be that driving people to your website, getting people to download your app, getting people to engage with your content, things like that, you will generally get a better cost on Facebook. Really, really good targeting. You've got your normal profile information, so things like age, gender, location, things like that. But Facebook have been really, really clever in terms of building profiles around people, and as well as combining it with like third-party data from people like Nielsen or like other big like data providers, and kind of coupling those data sets. So you get some really, really powerful tools from an advertising platform. There's a lot of different ad types. So almost regardless of what your objective is, you will be able to find an advertising type for it. It's really, really, really good at conversion tracking. So it's really, really good at, if you send someone to your website, telling you whether that person, if you set it up correctly, telling you whether that person has gone on to purchase. And that is really, really powerful. If you have any sort of e-commerce business, being able to tell which advertising is actually making people purchase is incredible. And Facebook made that really easy for you. And on a smaller note, everyone's on it. Facebook has something like 1.6 billion monthly active users. So almost anyone you want to target will be on Facebook. If they're young, they're probably going to be on Facebook. If they're old, they're probably going to be on Facebook. If they're a small business, they're probably going to be on Facebook. Facebook basically has everyone on it, which means you don't have to think too hard about, actually, is this specific demographic going to be there? Because likely, chances they are. I have one disadvantage for them, which was basically me, like, I can't just praise them all the time. They're not great at professional targeting, because largely no one really updates their job. Like, no one really updates their job on Facebook, so therefore, because the information's not there, it's very hard to target it. Instagram. So Instagram's quite a new player in the advertising game. So they've only really recently started to get into the advertising field, largely because they needed a way to make money. So they look like they're going to go down the same path as Facebook, is making their feed algorithmic, which for one thing is to make a better user experience for the users, which is obviously a really important point. But also it means for brands and people trying to get on the platform, you will likely need to start to pay in order to reach your fans. Instagram is great because it uses the same backend as Facebook. So all the great, well, not all the great advertisers, like all the great conversion tracking and all the ease of using Facebook, all the backend is the same. So as a minor point, that's really, really useful. Again, because it's the same backend as Facebook, brilliant targeting. Really, really good targeting. And as well, for things like, if you're looking to people just to engage with your content in order to raise brand awareness, it's really cheap. It's kind of a good way to kind of get brand awareness and get people to engage with your content out there. Two things that's not so great at. Not the hugest variety of advertising at the moment. You basically have got content promotion, so getting people to engage with the content you're posting on the platform, or sending people off to a website, or getting people to download an app. But they don't have the same number of different advertising types that other platforms do. And it's also relatively expensive to get people to your website. So it'll cost you about £1 per click to send people to your website, whereas on Facebook it might cost you, I don't know, 30, 40p, just to give it a scope. But the thing with Instagram has a particular type of crowd. So if you're looking for fashionistas, or you're looking for very lifestyle-focused people and things like that, you're going to find them on Instagram. And I'd say largely it's a slightly more affluent crowd than some of the other platforms, but that might be speculation. Twitter, brilliant for targeting live events or live targeting. So if you want to engage with people who are watching the Super Bowl or watching the World Cup, or I'm not into sports, so I can't think of anything else. Really, really good at engaging with those live events. So you can target around TV events or sports events and things like that, or you can target around things like keyword tracking. So if you're looking for people who are talking about a certain thing or talking about a certain event, absolutely brilliant. And I was discussing earlier, because Twitter are looking to monetize more, things like that, it's actually really easy to get an account manager there, because they really want people to use the advertising platform. So if you're looking for a helping hand on a platform, Twitter are really wanting marketers and advertisers to get on board. So it's really easy to get an account manager, and they're really, really helpful. They also have very good conversion tracking. The only thing is, it's more expensive overall. So compared to Facebook, you will pay more per action, whatever you're trying to achieve overall. And the tools aren't as nice as well. It's harder to manage a large number of campaigns. And last one, I'm just going to talk about is LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is a really interesting one because basically LinkedIn is unrivaled in terms of its professional targeting. Because people update their LinkedIn profiles relatively frequently, it's basically the only place you can really, really accurately target based on people's professional information. So if you want to, so you can target by things like company size, specific company names, company industry, job industry, seniority. So if you wanted to target CEOs of companies who are like small companies between 1 and 50 people who work in the tech industry in London, that's basically the only place you're going to be able to target them really, really accurately, which is incredible for things like corporate clients or financial clients or things like that, who have very specific people in mind they want to get after, normally corporate based. It's basically the only place you can do that really, really well and really, really accurately. The only thing is, you will pay for it. It is quite an expensive platform. So if I was saying on Twitter you're paying, on Instagram you're paying about £1 per web click, so a pound per person clicking to your website. On LinkedIn you're probably paying about £2. So it's really, really good for professional targeting, but they kind of know it, so they will charge you quite a lot for it. So I think for me, if you're ever looking on LinkedIn, you've kind of got a question, am I getting the value out of this that it will cost me? If that makes sense? You know what I mean? Also, in terms of running advertising, they have very little support, and the tools are absolutely useless. So it's really good professional targeting, and that's basically the only thing it's good at. So if you need to do that, brilliant. But if you want a nice experience, it's probably not the one. But the interface can really go. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the platforms and things like that. And like I said, just going back to the beginning, my general rule of thumb is unless there's a specific reason not to, use Facebook. So unless you're targeting professionals, in which case you'd use LinkedIn, or unless you're targeting live events, in which you use Twitter, or unless you're targeting maybe a small niche of kind of fashion and lifestyle type orientated people, you might use Instagram. Otherwise, you're going to be using Facebook. For the reason I said before, it's cost effective, really targetable, really measurable, brilliant tools. It's just very good, and everyone's done it basically. So what I was planning to show here, what I will show, but I won't briefly run through some more interesting and slightly more niche advertising types on Facebook. I recognise that if you haven't done some Facebook marketing before, this may not make that much sense, and I apologise, but I'll go through it fairly quickly. But it should give you an indication of some of the types of literal physical advert, as in literally what they look like. Products, we have multi-facets to it. So say I was going to advertise this talk on Facebook using a carousel ad, I might be like, I don't know, learn about Facebook as a platform. Want to know which platform's the best for your advertising? I don't know, other things, interesting things. But as in, you can show multi-facets of the same product, or you can show lots of different products in the same attribute. The good thing about this is users find it quite engaging, so you generally get lower costs overall, because also it's kind of a scattershot approach of if you show users like 4 or 5 things, it's more likely that they might like that product, they might be interested in finding out more about that thing, than if you're just showing them one thing at a time. So generally you find your costs will reduce overall. Now the next one is relatively new and not that often used. Who here knows what Facebook Instant Articles are? Okay, so Facebook Instant Articles is basically a way that Facebook came up with recently to try and keep more traffic on Facebook rather than going off to third-party websites. So a lot of people will use Facebook as a kind of always news aggregator or content aggregator, and they'll click off to things like BuzzFeed or click off things to Huffington Post or things like that. Facebook realized that actually mobile users, it's a bit of a pain for mobile users to click off to third-party sites because connection speeds are slow and it has to load up, and by that point you're disengaged and things like that. So they created this thing called Facebook Instant Articles, which basically loads an article in Facebook itself, so you don't have to click off to the website. This is a similar thing, but in an advertising unit. So with these sort of advertising, when you click on them, it's like a full display. It's like a full page, full screen display, which means you can do some kind of really interesting, rich media type presentations. So you can combine video, you can combine text, you can combine carousels, you can combine photos, you can provide combine product catalogs and things like that. So this is this is one that Guinness did. And I'm just going to kind of scroll down it to show you kind of how much you can kind of integrate in one kind of advertising thing. Oh, I'm struggling a bit with scrolling. So that's like quite an interesting experience for a user because you get loads and loads of content in kind of one thing, and you can tell as an advertiser, you can tell a real story. So you can, suddenly here you have, so normally in Facebook you're limited to that little display, which you can't really show that much. Whereas with something like this, actually it starts to rival things like print advertising, or things like, I don't know, television advertising, where you're combining video, you're combining print, you're combining all these sorts of different elements into one really, really quite interesting thing for advertisers. So those are just kind of 2 little interesting Facebook advertising types. Just kind of show you the variety of things you can do on Facebook. One thing as well I'm just going to touch on is in terms of targeting, so something I was talking about earlier in terms of targeting and things like that. Facebook offers loads of different targeting options, so you can target people based on their demographics or their interests and things like that. Another way you can target people is through what are known as custom audiences. So custom audiences can come in the form of, if you had, for example, if you had a list of 1,000 people who've signed up to your app, you could use that list of 1,000 people, upload it into Facebook. Facebook will find if any of those 1,000 people have Facebook accounts attached to them, and then you can use that subset of people who have Facebook accounts as a way to target. Now that's really interesting. So let's say you had an email database of 40,000 people, but you're struggling to convert these people online, you're struggling to get these people to engage with your social media marketing. You can take that list, upload it into Facebook, match those profiles, and then start targeting those same people with different marketing messages, or trying to get ways to re-engage them, or trying to get ways for them to engage with your social media marketing. You can also do that, as well as email lists, you can do also that with website traffic. So with the help of Facebook's tracking pixels, which you can install on your website, which will record your website traffic, you can use the audiences generated from that to target to, which allows us some really interesting things like retargeting. So recently we had a really successful campaign at work with a small, I guess they're a software platform, like an online HR platform. And basically looking at targeting to people who have been on the website. They've clicked around a bit, so they've looked at About Us, they've looked at the team, they've looked at more info, they've looked at the pricing info, but they haven't gone on to register. They haven't gone on to sign up for the service. Now that's a really interesting audience, because that's someone who's shown they're engaged with your service, they've shown they're interested in some way, but they haven't yet made it quite to that step of actually signing up to your service. So using things like this, you can capture that audience and be like, those people who have shown an interest but haven't actually signed up. By serving advertising back to that same audience, we're getting really, really good cost per sign-up rate in terms of driving people from Facebook to eventually sign up for the service on this site. So there's things like that, where there's some really, really interesting, really, really exciting ways you can kind of target your marketing messages to people who have already shown an interest in your brand and might just need a slight nudge towards actually engaging with it more fully. The other thing I'm just going to briefly touch on is what's known as a lookalike audience, where Facebook will basically... So let's say you had this audience of website traffic, and there's 1,000 people in this audience, which is it's a fair amount of people, but it's not massive. What Facebook can do is go, actually, Facebook, can you take these 1,000 people and then find me 100,000 people who are similar to them? And because of the level of information that Facebook, I recognize when I talk about this, some of this, it sounds very scary and like 1984. But because of the level of information that Facebook has about you, it can find people who are really similarly matched to that initial set. So it enables you to expand your targeting set to a much larger audience, but while still remaining similar to the initial audience you were after. So these are just two kind of quite interesting ways that Facebook can provide you to target it. So in order to, so I think I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I want some time for questions at the end. And so if you have any questions like real specifically about like practical advertising stuff and things like that, come speak to me at the end or give me an email or give me a tweet or anything like that. But I'm just going to go through this as kind of like a, if you were going to start out tomorrow being like, okay, brilliant, saw that talk by Tom, it was absolutely astounding, went home and saw my wife photos, amazing. Now I really want to get started, like, how do I start? So these are just some ways, bar like showing you a tutorial on how to set up a Facebook advert, just some ways to start looking at actually driving online sales through some sort of social media targeting. Again, focusing on Facebook because I love it. But yeah. So I think there's a few things. The brilliant things about social media marketing, because it's cost effective, you can start with very small budgets. So you can start testing with budgets of £50, £100. Relatively small budgets, but with that £50 and £100, you'll be able to see good results. So if you're paying something like 30, 40, 50p a website click to drive people onto your online site, you can get a reasonable amount of data using just £50 or £100 to kind of give you an indication of, actually, is this working, is this not working, that kind of thing. So I think my first advice is start small. So don't start with like a £10,000 budget and just plow it all behind something and just leave it running and go, oh, that didn't work, I'm never going to try advertising again. Start small, build up. Secondly, with that, test what works. Because you can start with small budgets, again, don't just lump it behind the first idea you have. Try different advertising types, try different advert types, try different targeting types, try different copy, try different creative, try different everything you can. But the one thing I would say, unless you're a statistical whiz, try one thing at a time. Because I know the first thing that when clients speak to me about testing a lot of stuff, they want to test everything at once. And I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you try and test everything at once, actually you'll come back with your results and you have no idea what's made a difference. So start small and test one thing at a time. Because then you can come back to your advertising and be like, okay, so this week we tested copy A versus copy B. Copy B performed 50% better, therefore let's go with copy B. Okay, let's take copy B and let's put it with let's target it to the audience of people who signed up to the WeWork event and the audience of people who like dogs. Okay, cool. Like people who like dogs are much more to dogs, aren't we? And carry on like that. And I think the most important thing, and I think is genuinely one of the most valuable things about social media advertising and broadly digital advertising, is measure it and learn how to measure it well. So if you're sending traffic to your website, find out whether those people are doing what you want them to do. Because if they're not doing what you want them to do, then you're wasting your money. Or if you want people to engage with your content, measure against people engaging with your content. Or if you want people to follow your page, measure against people following your page. But make sure you go into your advertising knowing what you want to achieve, and very specifically. If you can't sum up what you want to achieve by your advert in one line, you don't know what you want to achieve. So go in with really clear aims and figure out how to measure it. Facebook provides some really great tools, provides some really great tutorials. And you can do some really interesting things with conversion tracking, so you can track whether someone's looked at your ad, not necessarily clicked through, looked at their ad on your phone, not necessarily clicked through, gone onto their desktop 3 days later, and then bought your thing. Facebook can track all that, basically. So that's really, really powerful. So make sure you're using that. Because if you're not measuring your results, then you're basically just throwing your money away. Because you're basically just throwing some money out there and being like, oh, I hope that works. But actually, why not measure it? Why not figure out if it works? Because there's that old adage that 50% of the money you spend on marketing is wasted. The only problem is you don't know which 50%. And I think with I say social media marketing is, well, why don't you find out? Because you can. And even if you're thinking, actually, this doesn't apply for me because I need people to come into my store, I need people to come offline. Yeah, it's hard. It's much harder to track, but you can do it. So you can use things like online coupons, or you can use things like discount codes, or you can use things like show this in the store, or you can use things like that to track whether those people have gone online and then ended up in your store. So those are my kind of 3 things. If you're going to start off like general social media advertising, specifically Facebook, or actually genuinely any sort of social media advertising, these are things that I would absolutely reiterate over and over and over. Start small, test what works, and measure it. Measure it, measure it, measure it, measure it, measure it. Because if you don't measure it, you don't know what's working, and then you're just throwing money. So I was going to get onto this, but this is more to do with people who work in agencies and things like that. I'll quickly scan over it. What is split testing? Split testing is basically when you test 2 things at the same time and see which one works better. People always ask me, can we do loads of split tests? As I said before, yes you can, but do them one after the other. Don't try and do too many at once, otherwise you don't know what you're doing. And always test one thing at a time. Budget, how much budget should you spend on social media marketing? Is largely an open-ended question. Unless you're at extreme ends, it kind of really depends on what your budget is. So like if you're spending like over £10 and less than like £20,000, it doesn't make that, the only difference it will make is how many results you will achieve, in a nutshell. I would say, if you're looking to test it, start out with something like between £200 to £500 to kind of give it a good shot. And like I say, but don't spend all that £200 to £500 at once. Spend like £50, £100 at a time, and kind of work slowly. What should we measure? Basically, what do you want to achieve? Every stage, you're asking, why am I doing this? What am I trying to achieve with this? And if you can't answer that question, stop spending it once, go back to the drawing board, and find out, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get people to engage with your content on Facebook? If so, spend money on page promotion, post promotion on Facebook, and people will engage with your content, and you will get the best cost for that. Are you trying to send people to your website? Okay, spend money on website clicks advertising and send people to your website. Okay, I'm gonna trying to get people to download my app. Okay, spend money on app downloads apps, and that like, yes, sometimes you can break the rules and it works really well, but generally as a starting point, find out what you're trying to measure, find the advertising type that matches with what you're trying to measure. Yeah, what you're trying to measure, what you're trying to achieve, and like match those two together, and you will generally get the best results. Choosing an advert type, those two, I've basically tied those points together, is what are you trying to measure, what's the advert type that matches that, you're done. Right, that's basically it. You can find the Born Social either both Twitter and Instagram. We're very modern. At Be Born Social, you can find me again on both platforms at THLGammon. If you want to tweet me or send me a lovely photo of yourself on Instagram or whatever, you can contact me there, or you can come to speak to me afterwards. I may even give you a business card if you're actually nice to me, and things like that. So that's basically my talk. And so if you have any questions, fine. Oh. Alex?
I was going to ask quickly about cross-platform tracking of assisted sales. So say for instance someone was on Facebook and they get shown an ad for a top,
yeah.
And they engage with that and they see it's a top they like, but maybe they want to have a look at that brand on another platform, for instance like Instagram, where they can get much more visualization about that particular brand and how people have interacted with that brand.
Okay.
In terms of how does that get divvied up with an actual sale? Like, kind of, is there processes in place that it recognises the fact that the user started their journey at Facebook, sort of carried on through to Instagram, and then finished it at the e-commerce platform?
So, I mean, what we're diving into here is the large problem with like digital analytics and tracking movement of traffic online is that it's very hard to kind of tell like who made the impact that converted the person to a sale. Is it the first Facebook ad they saw, or is it actually the second Instagram ad, or is it the search ad, or is it the larger that there's no like formal system within Facebook. The thing I will say is if you're tracking traffic and conversions from Facebook and you're comparing that to things like Google Analytics, you will probably see different results because depending on how you've set up those two platforms, Google Analytics is really, really good, but not great at what's known as non-linear tracking. So Google Analytics is brilliant. If someone clicks on a link, like goes to the website and then buys something, Google Analytics goes, I got this, that person came from here, he bought it from there. What a lot of people do nowadays is might look at an ad on mobile, have a look on the website on mobile, and be like, okay, cool, I'm going to get that code, but I'm actually not going to buy on mobile because users don't generally like to buy things on mobile, so they might go onto their desktop 2 days later and finally buy it. Facebook can track that because if you're logged into multiple locations, it can track that you're the same person who saw that advert and purchased. But no, there's no like formal system of divvying up that traffic. It kind of has to be however you're divvying up your traffic across your channels. You kind of have to apply the same logic. You can do things like on a more technical level, like tag it with UTM tags and things like that, so you can track what it is. But again, it's a whole dark art. Yeah.
Isn't Instagram owned by Facebook?
Yeah.
So does that not kind of have any similarities, or just surely can't work completely independently of their own one another? Kind of like YouTube and Google work as separate entities, but Google advertising here on YouTube. It's not the same here. Is there some sort of relationship between the two firms?
Yeah. So from my perspective as like an advertiser looking at my the Facebook advertising setup, I can basically choose Facebook as a placement for my ad, or Instagram, or third-party mobile networks and things like that. So from my end, there's basically zero difference, other than the potential results I'll see for a different advert type, and certain advert types can't be allowed on both. But yeah, basically it's the same in the back. If you get what I mean. The plumbing's the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that sorry? Is that
No, I mean, like, if you're dealing effectively with the same company, I didn't know if effectively you should be using the same tactics, or they kind of, is Instagram, you know, operating as a completely independent entity kind of thing, you know? So
I think
they're all sat in the same office in the same kind of pricing huddle kind of thing, kind of figuring out what they're going to do, allocating the same resources. It's going to have the same, it's going to affect your tactics in terms of how you're going to pay for your advertising, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so I think the thing is, there's a couple of things at play here. One, Twitter has just a much, much smaller audience. So they have something like, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, about 300 million monthly active users compared to Facebook's 1.6 billion. So first of all, things are going to be slightly more expensive because you're dealing with a smaller audience. So your likelihood of finding someone who's interested in your stuff is just a bit smaller. And it's also generally a different crowd. So they're generally younger, generally more kind of social media savvy and things like that. That's changing as more becomes more popular, but that's kind of has been the case. And just in like, as far as I know, like, yes, they are obviously owned by the same parent company, but I think Instagram largely operates under its own remit within Facebook. So they have quite a lot of identity. But I think a lot of the price differences and things like that is largely down to just very different audiences. Not very different, but like largely quite different audiences, and they're kind of different needs and wants and things like that.
Well, you mentioned something that reference to the UK market that has about 38 million users in Facebook and 34 million in Twitter. What changed? Is the engagement of the Facebook user or the engagement of the Twitter user? Because they share some of the same audience, right?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things at play. So I think largely users are just engaging less on Twitter. So yes, there are still like a lot of active users, but they don't really engage with the platform the same way as they engage with Facebook. Facebook has managed to cement itself as like part of people's lives, and it kind of forms a core of their experience. So whether they're using the actual Facebook platform itself, or things like Facebook Messenger, or Facebook groups, or pages, or things like that. Whereas Twitter, although it has potentially similar like active users within the UK, they just engage with the platform like in a different way, and well, generally slightly less, which is mainly the problem that Twitter's having. So I think that's part of the reason why you see a bit of a difference in terms of the advertising stuff.
Can you sort of segment by device? What I mean by that is like target a mobile audience, particularly an Android mobile audience.
Yeah, so you can target by just like operating systems, so like Android, iOS. You can also target by like specific operating systems and by like specific models and things like that. So for example, I know for app companies, they really like it because they like, if my app only works on iOS 5.2 or whatever, or like Android, Marshmallow, or things like that, you can be like, well, I'm only going to serve mobile ads to those devices because there's no point user downloading them and being like, oh, I can't actually use it. But yeah, so you can subdivide quite thoroughly.
So for app promotion, it's really the cheapest, best way to reach quite a big audience.
Yeah, so I think it's really, really powerful in terms of that kind of targeting, of kind of like just getting to who you want to and like people who can use the device, and yeah, generally really, really effective.
Are any of these platforms geo-sensitive in that if you were to want your advert to appear on the screen to people who are within a certain radius distance of your business, is that feasible or possible?
Yeah, so that's one thing I should have mentioned, sorry. So on Facebook, their geo-targeting is again really, really good. So with Facebook, you can geo-target within about 1 mile of basically any GPS coordinate you can give it. So I could geo-target within 1 mile of this location right now. Or you can target by city and country and things like that. On Twitter, the lowest you can go down is to the kind of postcode regions in the UK, or zip code and stuff in the US. But it's less granular. Instagram is the same as Facebook, and LinkedIn is down to a city level.
Could that be triggered by certain keywords? Say if I was to want my advert to appear in front of anyone who has typed in the word tax within a radius of, say, a mile or 2 miles of my business. Is that possible?
On Twitter, yes. So Twitter you can target by keyword, but it's less good at the location. So you could target within like a few postcode regions and things like that. You might just want to target broadly London or something. On Facebook and stuff, you can't do that kind of live. So you could target people who have an interest in small businesses or something, which might be people to account for, but you couldn't target that same, like, what are the conversations people actually have.
Hello, you didn't mention Google very much, and you mentioned Google Analytics, but I find that I get a lot of advertising through Google. Is that Google Analytics? As an audience, as a customer?
From Google, as in people searching through Google?
Yes, yes.
So we don't really cover that because it's not, well, they do have Google Plus. But
is that Google Plus?
Well, so what I think you're talking about is Google kind of search stuff. So
yes,
so the search
and suddenly I'm doing something completely different and I'm being bombarded with ads.
Yeah, so that's so we don't do that kind of stuff because that's outside the social domain.
It's not social.
Not strictly in our sense.
Okay.
So that's kind of broadly digital advertising.
That is digital.
Yeah, but not what we consider social advertising. So social is just if the advert's physically appearing on like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, rather than on search pages.
According to your experience, when a campaign is successful, you say start small with £50 or £100. What is the rate of conversion it is successful? I mean, in your opinion, for your experience.
Yeah. So with things like this, it's relatively hard because it depends on like product and the category and things like that. Yeah, I'll try and give a broad answer. Something like something between like 5 and 10% would be pretty good in terms of in terms of people looking at your advert and actually buying your product. I'd say anything around maybe like 2-3% is like reasonable. Yeah, I'd say like that's kind of like a reasonable conversion rate.
Yeah, for the final
for people looking at your ad and then eventually going to find a purchase. Kind of, well, clicking your ad and going to find a purchase. That's like a reasonable. That's kind of like a reasonable guessing point of like where you might look. So if you're getting like 0.01%, you might be like, okay, we need to check this. But if you're getting like 50%, then you're an absolute social marketing god, and you should just found an agency yourself. Yeah, is that good?
Yeah. Perfect. If you want to get people to your website on Facebook, you have the option of promoting the Learn More button.
Yep.
How cost effective is that compared to a straight ad?
I actually don't know. I think, because I know you can set them up, I've never personally done any of the kind of promoting that kind of stuff, because if we're sending people to websites, we'll always do kind of website clicks ads. But yeah, I'm afraid I actually don't have a lot of experience with that. So.
You mentioned Facebook a few times. How do you find that for like B2B marketing, like boosting posts and so on?
I think it depends. I think it depends on kind of who the other B is, if you get what I mean. So I know we've had some corporate clients who have put some money into Facebook because although you can't target as narrowly, so you can't be like, I just want to reach like lawyers in Dorset who are like directors of their firms, whatever. You can target people who have an interest in law. It might be slightly a broader remit, but you're still likely to reach some of those same people. So we definitely use it for B2B clients. But I think you just kind of you've got to allow for like, okay, I can't get this absolutely narrowed down 100%. But you can get like if you know. So if you're let's say you're a recruitment firm and you want to target people who want tech jobs, you can broadly, well maybe that's slightly B2C, but you understand what I mean. Like you can target people who have an interest in tech and things like that. So you can target more broadly, but it just depends how like granular and narrow you want to be in terms of who the other businesses.
Do you still think that LinkedIn and Twitter and Google Plus might be better?